I had zero intentions of even creating a company when I started. Everything was scary about launching the company because I didn't think it would be what it is now. Not to say that it's this big company, but I didn't go to school for business, so I knew nothing of business. Basically, my weekends were just spent with concrete. After work was concrete, every day was concrete. And eventually it was so much concrete that I had to leave my job, which was really good. Concrete Geometric has one employee, and that's me. I'm the only one. I make all of your pieces. Our line consists of planters, candle holders, trays, dishes, and now a lot of custom sculpture work. I think for me, if it looks good and it functions to what it's supposed to be, then it's a good design. A lot of times the design inspiration comes to me when I'm in nature, from taking hikes or going on walks with my dogs. Once I have a sketch on paper that I really like, I have a 3D model made that becomes our masterpiece, and we start to begin the process of creating a mold for the piece. The first step in creating a silicone mold is deciding where we're going to pour the concrete into and where we're going to break the mold so that the concrete piece will come out. Depending on the shape, it can be very tricky. If you don't create the mold correctly or you don't cut into it correctly, you'll end up with seam lines that the concrete will always cast into. Certain pieces require a brush-on technique so that the mold can be cut at the line and it won't have a seam line when it's casted. The other mold I make is a solid mold of silicone. I create a box for it, put the piece inside, and slowly pour silicone. You mix equal parts of A and B. You have to mix pretty quickly, otherwise that silicone won't cure and you won't have a mold. Once we poured our silicone, we wait for it to cure. Once it cures, it can be cut into. Cutting into it, sort of like slicing butter with a knife. It's very fast, and if your knife just moves a little bit, you can cut into the wrong area, so you have to be really careful with it. The first step in preparing concrete is to always have the water measured out first, and then if there's a pigment I want to use, I add it then. I slowly start to add the concrete into it. I do that just because you can't really adjust concrete once it's already mixed, so you have to work little by little to work it up to the density that you want to use it at. If I'm working on a piece that requires layers of color, then I mix in very small batches, and each batch will be a different pigment. And that pigmented batch will be poured into the mold slowly. We wait a few seconds or a few minutes before the next pigment so that they don't fully submerge each other inside of the mold. Once I see the concrete reach the top of the mold, then I stop pouring, and if I over pour, then I just wipe it right off. But depending on weather, sometimes the concrete will cast within 10 minutes if it's 110 degrees outside, or it'll cast within 3 hours if it's 54 degrees outside. I slowly start to peel off the edges of where the piece was poured, and then the piece should come right out. Once I pull it out of the mold, I make sure that there was no air bubbles or any parts where there's a lot of concrete missing. If it looks good, then it just gets a light sand and it gets rinsed off and polished. Pulling out one of the pieces and seeing actually what you thought it was gonna look like and it ends up looking better, it's kind of like Christmas and you open a gift. Being asked to do projects for people that I looked up to when I was in high school, and now I'm like talking to them about design is really amazing.